Well, it's personal between me and you, and I'm going to do you some serious harm, you big stiff idiot.
The Untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, listen, man, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite divisions in boxing, a division that I really think will be making a big comeback in 2022. You know, the first video I dropped this year was about how I believed that the light heavyweight division will be a division that does make a comeback this year and has a lot of entertaining fights and fights that boxing fans will love, and it just takes a step forward in the right direction, right? So the first big fight in the light heavyweight division was supposed to be between Joe Smith Jr. and Callum Johnson this Saturday. Callum Johnson has pulled out the fight and can't fight in the fight due to a positive COVID test. So, life is crazy. There's ups and there's downs, and things don't always go as planned. So, Top Rank Boxing, they went ahead and they were scouring the earth for a good, solid, credible replacement opponent for Joe Smith Jr. on, what was it, like 8 days notice when the positive test came out. So, you know, it's very hard to find a late replacement opponent, let alone in 8 days. But they found him, and you know what? They found someone, and the guy they picked is someone that I'm very, very familiar with. You know, I would definitely say he's a friend of the channel. He's you know, someone that I support heavily, and that I've been waiting for such a long time for this guy to get an opportunity. And man, oh man, what an opportunity this is for my main man, 50 grand in the light heavyweight division, Steve Geffard. Steve Geffard is fighting Joe Smith Jr. Now, I know a lot of people might be saying, who on earth is Steve Geffard, and why, you know, why is BT so excited about Steve Geffard? Because, you know, you go on his box track, you see that he's 18-2. He started off his career off 0-2, got stopped in his pro debut. Hasn't really fought anybody of great name value at all. So why am I excited about this fight? Well, let me give you guys some background information on Steve Geffard. Let me tell you a little bit about his style, and let me tell you how I think it'll play out with Joe Smith Jr., how I think it could play out, and why I think it's a good matchup. So we'll start from the amateurs, because that's really the foundation of Steve Geffard. And I got to educate people because they don't know who Steve Geffard is. So let me be the one. Let me be your resident Steve Geffard expert. So Steve was an outstanding amateur, absolutely outstanding amateur. In 2010, Steve Geffard actually won the 2010 USA Male Amateur Boxer of the Year, which means that in 2010, he was the best USA amateur there was. And, you know, I don't know, I'm not sure if he's one of only two anymore, but I know at the time that he accomplished this, Steve Geffard won gold and finished at the top in the 3 major USA amateur tournaments. He won the National Golden Gloves in his weight class, which is light heavyweight or heavyweight. He won the National Golden Gloves. He won the U.S. National Championships, won gold at that, and then he also won the PAL State Championships. He won the Triple Crown, which at the time he accomplished it. I don't know if anybody's done it since, but at the time he accomplished that feat, that you know, major accomplishment, the only fighter that had done that in the amateurs was Rasheed Warren. And Rasheed Warren was a world-class amateur, went on to be a world champion, a solid fighter. Didn't really make the noise in the pros that he did in the amateurs, but still a good fighter. Not bad company to be with, and no small accomplishment. As a pro, you know, things have not really gone his way. You know, he fought his pro debut, he got knocked out. You know, just like Makabu got knocked out in his pro debut. Then he lost in a second fight. He lost a split decision, I believe it was, to Travis Reeves. So he started off his career 0-2, and you know, since those 2 losses, he's won 16 straight fights. Now, there's been a lot of inactivity in the career of Steve Geffard. He's had promotional issues. You know, just had things outside the ring that were hindering him from fighting often. So there hasn't been a whole lot of activity for Steve. He's only fought 3 times in the last 5 years. His last fight was March of 2021. And but the good news is Steve was training for the fight. He was training for another fight that took place this past weekend. There was a card in South Florida in Delray Beach. He was supposed to fight somebody else. So he's been in the gym, he's been training. And Steve for a long time has made people who are really in the know in boxing, they know who Steve is. He's been making a good name for himself in these gyms as a sparring partner over the years for guys like he sparred, like he was Sergey Kovalev's main sparring partner, one of his sparring partners for the Bernard Hopkins fight. He was sparring prime Sergey Kovalev because prime Sergey Kovalev was trained by John David Jackson, who used to bring Sergey Kovalev to the Boca Raton Powell, which is where Derek Santos, who used to train Steve Geffard, was at, and he would have it out with Sergey Kovalev, the prime Sergey Kovalev. So when you look at all those tapes of Kovalev beating the shit out of people, the guy that was sparring him the most, a lot, I don't know about the most, but a lot, was Steve Geffard at that time. He sparred with Artur Beterbiev. He sparred with Joshua Buatsi. And I'm not going to say how that sparring went, but I've heard through multiple sources in the UK that he did very good against Joshua Buatsi. Buatsi, Beterbiev, Kovalev, Eliot Alvarez, Sullivan Barrera. I mean, this guy is experienced. And I know a lot of people haven't heard of him, but I'm telling you guys right now, I think he has a style to beat Joe Smith Jr. I'm not, like, Joe Smith Jr. is a very good fighter. I'm a fan of Joe Smith Jr. I don't like the fact that I'm going to be rooting against Joe Smith Jr., but I have to support the South Florida guy. I got to support someone that's been a big supporter of the channel, and I've been a big supporter of his, and that's Steve Geffard. Steve, I think, can beat Joe Smith because if you look at, like, Joe Smith's 3 losses, Joe Smith Jr. has never been stopped, ever. He's only lost, like, the best light heavyweights. Like, he lost to, he's lost to 2 elite light heavyweights. He lost to Bivol. He lost to Sullivan Barrera. And he lost to, I'm drawing a blank. But he's been outboxed multiple times before. We know that Joe Smith Jr. is a great puncher, pound for pound, one of the hardest punchers any weight class in boxing. So I think Steve Geffard, what this fight comes down to, for Steve, and what it comes down to for Joe Smith Jr. as well, is the left hook of Joe Smith Jr. Joe Smith Jr.'s money punch is the left hook. You know, when he lands it, you know, he's a really hard guy. When he landed that left hook a lot, or you know, consistently, he's a hard guy to beat. So my thing is this: Steve Geffard is very well schooled as a fighter, experienced in the gym, experienced as an amateur, has 20 fights in the professional ranks. He's not gonna go in there scared. I think he has the capabilities to outbox Joe Smith, because I've seen guys like I'm not trying to disrespect Sullivan Barrera. Sullivan Barrera is a good fighter, but like I know it's my belief from seeing Steve fight in person and seeing him fight over the years and seeing Sullivan Barrera fight over the years. I personally think Steve Geffard is a more talented fighter than Sullivan Barrera. Now, whether he puts it together under the lights this Saturday, that remains to be seen. But in my humble opinion, I've seen a fighter beat Joe Smith Jr. that was, in my humble opinion, worse than Steve Geffard. So I could be right. Steve Geffard can go in there and be the next world champion. Or I could be wrong. Steve Geffard might get knocked the fuck out. That's why I watch the fights. But I think with his jab, with his size, with his experience as a fighter, I don't think he's going to be in there afraid of Joe Smith. I think Joe Smith Jr. is susceptible to losing to guys who can box and guys that have a little bit of power to keep him off. Steve's not a big, like an elite puncher, but he's a respectable puncher. He's got 12 knockouts, 18 fights, so I could see that being something for Joe Smith Jr. Steve's going to be right there in his face. He's going to come forward. He's not going to run. It's going to be an exciting fight. And I think it's going to end one of 2 ways. You know, I think either Steve's going to outbox Joe Smith, and he's going to show the world that he's been one of these diamonds in the rough, and that the boxing game has treated him poorly and mismanaged him, and he's going to walk out that building as the next WBO light heavyweight champion and the next world champion from South Florida. Or I think Joe Smith Jr. is going to knock him the hell out. Straight up. Now, we'll see. I think Steve could knock out Joe Smith, but the thing is, Steve, from what I remember seeing of Steve in the, you know, just fighting and stuff, his best power punch is the left hook, and Joe Smith Jr.'s best power punch is the left hook. So that could be problematic for Steve if he trades with Joe Smith, because Joe Smith Jr. likes to, he's got a great left hook, and I feel like it's not the best thing to do to trade left hooks to Joe Smith Jr. But we're gonna see, man. We're gonna see. You know, all respect every boxing fan in the world, whether you know who he is or don't know who he is. I think everybody should respect Steve Geffard for taking this fight on 8 days' notice, because, look, Joe Smith Jr. is a killer. Joe Smith Jr. is one of the hardest punchers in boxing, and he's not someone that you want to ever go into a fight with 8 days' notice, and Steve Geffard is doing that. So if he comes out this fight as the world champion, I want everybody in boxing to give him his flowers, because this is a guy that's experienced the highest of highs in the amateurs to the lowest of lows in the pros, and he's got a chance to experience the highest of highs in the pros if he beats Joe Smith Jr. And he's done it the hard way. You know, he could have quit when he was 0-2. He could have quit when he wasn't getting fights, but he you know, credit to him, he stayed in the gym. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm rooting my ass off for Steve. But you know, feelings aside, I do think it's a winnable fight. I think it's a fight where he's got the style to beat him. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, those are my thoughts. You know, I'm going for Steve Geffard. Best wishes to Joe Smith Jr. It should be a good fight. I think you're getting two fighters that are really good. These are actually two of my favorite light heavyweights, to be honest with you. Like, I'm a big Joe Smith Jr. fan. I'm a big Steve Geffard fan. These are two guys that I think are gonna give the fans a good fight. A lot of people, like, I've heard a lot of people in boxing complaining about how boxing doesn't have a lot of fights this month and this, that, and the third, and boxing. No, this is a good fight. This is a really good fight. And I think win, lose, or draw from the Steve Geffard side of things, I think his stock will go up this fight. Win, lose, or draw. He's gonna put on a good performance. Joe Smith Jr., I really think he has nothing to gain in this fight because most of the general public doesn't know who Steve Geffard is. And Joe Smith Jr., he wants those big fights. He's still trying to get that Bivol rematch. He wants the better be a beautification. He's talking about fighting Canelo. Like, he wants those big fights. So this really is supposed to be a routine defense for him, and I think the pressure is really on him to deliver because whether you like it or not, Steve Geffard, I'm talking him up because I know what he can do, but he's really an unknown commodity. Like, there's even some things even I don't know about Steve because he's never fought this level before. But Joe Smith Jr. has everything to lose and absolutely nothing to gain by fighting Steve. So the pressure is really on him. Steve's got everything to win and nothing to lose. So good fight. Looking forward to it. Gonna be following it with a lot of interest. Best wishes to Steve Geffard, one of South Florida's very own. Looking forward, hopefully this time next week, hopefully Saturday night, we're celebrating the next South Florida world champion. And if not, hopefully at least it was a good fight and Steve gave a good account of himself, and Joe Smith Jr. delivered a good fight and give the boxing fans a fight they want to see, and they kick off the light heavyweight division the way it should be, because this division's been stagnating for a long time and we need something to kick it off properly. So I've been rambling for a long time because, look, listen, when I start talking about these South Florida fighters, it's not always, I don't always get a chance to because there's not always things happening. But when I do, I have a lot of fun doing it. So I'm behind you, Steve. I'm behind Steve Geffard. Looking forward to a good fight. Best wishes to both fighters. Joe Smith Jr., a great champion, a really good fighter. Steve Geffard, he's a lion-hearted person fighting Joe Smith Jr. on 8 days' notice. He really does deserve respect from boxing fans. But you guys leave your comments down below. Make sure you take the time to subscribe. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me. But I'm just a kid from Dania. So until next time, take care, guys. Thank you for watching another video on True School Sports, the home of boxing. If you made it this far, do me a favor and do yourself a damn favor. Hit that subscribe button and surely you will not be disappointed. True School Sports bringing you the latest and greatest, the untouchable, boxing content, interviews, news videos, breakdowns, live fight reaction extravaganza. We've got a great community of people here, boxing fans all over the world, from America to the UK to Australia, and on and on and on. So join the empire today. Hit that subscribe button. Take care and God bless.